Hebrews chapter 12, verse 3. Consider him who has endured such hostility by sinners against himself, so that you may not grow weary and lose heart. Can we repeat it one more time? Hebrews chapter 12, verse 3. Consider him who has endured such hostility by sinners against himself, so that you may not grow weary and lose heart. So while thinking about what to share regarding this verse, it was a blessing to be able to obey the first part of the verse, which says, consider him, consider Jesus. So spend time to think about the life of Jesus. And in doing so, the first thing that stood out to me was what it meant for Jesus to endure hostility. And I saw that it wasn't just that Jesus grit his teeth or chose to not wish harm on the sinners who showed him hostility, but rather he endured in love. And for my own life, I've seen that whenever I feel like someone is not treating me, the first thing that disappears is love. And so I see that Jesus endured in love. He came from heaven to earth to die for sinners because of his love. And when he was here, he was shown hostility by those same sinners, but he did not grow discouraged. He did not grow tired, but he endured in love towards the very people who meant him harm. So that was the first thing. And then the other thing was for me to see what attitude Jesus had during this period. And for me, it was a blessing to see that perhaps this was what helped Jesus to endure in love. And what I saw was that Jesus never had a victim's mentality or a victim's attitude. And the first time God showed me this was in my own life when I found myself getting upset at things that I did not want to get upset at. And I was praying, and one thing he showed me was that in every situation I got upset, one thing that was constant was that I saw myself as the victim. I saw myself as the person who was not treated fairly, or who was disrespected, or who was falsely accused. And as long as I had that mentality, it was very difficult for me to have a Christ-like attitude. And that's because I've seen that the focus becomes myself. I'm the one who needs help. I'm the one who needs to be understood. And I begin to justify myself, to justify why I am in the right and not in the wrong, or why I don't deserve to be treated that way, or why it's okay for me to be upset. And so after God showed me this, I have begun to sort in every situation where there's a misunderstanding. The first step for me is to not see myself as a victim. I would like us to look at Luke chapter 9, verse 23. Luke chapter 9, verse 23. I believe this is a common verse for us. In the NASB, it says, if anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself, take up his cross daily, and follow me. But thankfully, during my college days, there was a Bible study I was a part of, and we spent essentially a year looking at this verse. And something that I still remember from then is that if you read the same verse in Amplified version, so not the newer one, the older classic version, that phrase, deny himself, it expands it and says it means to disown himself, to forget and lose sight of himself and his own interests, to refuse and give up himself. And that phrase, to lose sight of himself, or for me to lose sight of myself, has been a blessing, because I see that when I have a disagreement with other people, the focus, like I said, is myself, and God is calling me to lose sight of myself, to look beyond myself, to see the need of the other person on the other side. And it doesn't matter who this is, whether it's a believer or not, whether it's my spouse or a boss or a colleague at work or relatives or my neighbors. Whenever there's a misunderstanding, to lose sight of my feelings, to lose sight of whether I deserve such treatment or not, or whether I am being understood or not, and to consider the other person as more important than myself, to see them that they are in greater need of sympathy, greater need of mercy and love than myself. And I also see that this is the example that Jesus gave us. If we'll go further in Luke in chapter 23, from verse 27 to 28, we see that when Jesus was on the way to the cross, there was a large crowd following him, it says, and of women who were mourning and lamenting him. But Jesus, turning to them, said, "Daughters of Jerusalem, stop weeping for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children." And also further on, that same chapter in verse 34, it says that when Jesus was being nailed to the cross, he was saying, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." And I saw that if there was anybody who, humanly speaking, had the right to feel like a victim, it was Jesus. But even in his greatest physical pain, he did not allow himself to be the focus. And in the verse 34, I also saw that it doesn't just say that Jesus said, it said he was saying. So I see it as though there was, what was flowing out of his heart was forgiveness for those people. It wasn't just a checkbox that Jesus wanted to fulfill. And also I thought about this song, which we sing here sometimes, and there's a line that says, "He looked beyond my faults and saw all my needs." And that's the attitude I want to have in every time I find myself being upset at what someone else has done, is to lose sight of myself, to look beyond my faults and unfair treatment, and see that the other person is in greater need of mercy, of love, and most importantly, they need Christ. One last example I'll just give. This was practical for me. There was a time when a relative of mine called and he was upset because I didn't call. There was something going on and I didn't call. And my initial reaction was to be upset, but I think this was when God first showed me this. And God helped me to look, rather than being upset, to think about why he was upset. And I saw that it was because he didn't feel loved. He didn't feel like I cared. And that changed everything for me. Rather than a situation where I would have been trying to justify my actions, I said, no, I should. It's his well-being is more important than mine. And I pray that God would help us. And even as we continue in the week and days to come, that would take time to consider the life of Jesus, to learn from how he lived, and to be able to walk even as Jesus walked.
Hello, family. Thank you, Brother Shina, for sharing that. I will also share from the memory verse, Hebrews 12:3. Consider him who has endured such hostility by sinners against himself, so that you may not grow weary and lose heart. So I'll share some thoughts that I was blessed by thinking about this memory verse and what the Lord was reminding me and helping me. He reminded me how far I'm away from enduring and away from him. I should not lose heart or grow weary when others misunderstand me or does something to harm me or fighting a giant in my life. If I am, what should I do? Matthew 11:28 tells us that we can go to him. If we're weary and burdened, he will give us rest. So I know I can find rest with him. I can go to Jesus and he will understand and will be there to help and give me rest. Jesus did not sin, but sinners hated him, misunderstood him at home, others. He endured misunderstandings at home and harsh words and actions against him. Do I have the same joy? Do I have joy when I put myself to death? I usually tend to do it with anger or grudgingly or with complaints. but Jesus did. Hebrews 12:2 tells us that he did it with joy set before him, and he endured the cross. Have I shed blood in fighting against a giant or denying my self-will? It hurts, but I've never been to that point. Jesus did. Hebrews 12:4 tells us, you have not yet resisted to the point of shedding blood in your striving against sin. I tend to defend myself in situations where I have to deny my will or put myself away. I should allow God to let the sword fall on me and break me in half rather than putting up my shield and fighting or defending. He knows the situation or that difficult person is good for me to make me more like him, so I should yield to that. Like we heard from Sandeep recently, he said, God hand selects situations that eternally bless me. That's 1 Corinthians 10:13. So I was thinking, as my little one Isabella, as her dad, I give her milk or food. I know it's good for her, it won't harm her. I wouldn't give her a big piece of chicken, and I know she will choke on it. So I wouldn't give her that. I will give her milk and food that she can handle. But my other older children, they may be picky and choosy. I don't want that now, or I don't want that. So they may pick and choose. But Isabella, she'll just take whatever I give her and take it and eat it or drink it. So I want to have Isabella's attitude. Whatever my dad's give me, I know it'll be good for me. Whether it's milk or food, I know it will be good for me, and I can handle it. I just want to have that attitude as Isabella would have. God puts a difficult person in my life so that I can be holy like him. He caused me to be born again. 1 Peter 1:3 tells us that. So he caused me to be born again so I can be holy like him. So what's the incentive or reward for enduring? I can be like him. I was blessed by these verses in Hebrews 12:5-11. I will read it real quick. Hebrews 12:5-11 goes like this. And you have forgotten the exhortation which is addressed to you as sons. My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord, nor faint when you are reproved by him. For those whom the Lord loves, he disciplines, and he scourges every son whom he receives. It is for discipline that you endure. God deals with us as with sons. For what son is there whom his father does not discipline? But if you are without discipline, of which all have become partakers, then you are illegitimate children and not sons. Furthermore, we had earthly fathers to discipline us, and we respected them. Shall we not much more rather be subject to the Father of spirits and live? For they disciplined us for a short time as seemed best to them, but he disciplines us for our good. So I want to have that attitude, and remember always when I deal with difficult circumstances or situations that he's bringing in this for my good. So I pray and I trust that the Holy Spirit will help me to endure in a difficult situation. So, and I know I have a great example to follow and look up to. So may God help me, and may God help all of us. Amen.